Welcome back, or welcome to Making Good Choices Monday. I'm Becky Amio, and today I have a fantastic story for you. I'm really excited about this because I actually have footage of what happened, and I'm going to insert it in this video, and I'm also going to share the link in the description box where I posted it to my YouTube channel way back in 2013 when it first happened, but I made the link private and I only shared it with a handful of people. So I'm really excited to open that up and put it in here and revisit the time I had a colt blow up with me at branding. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a long story, and grab yourself something to drink and kick back in a chair or have a good drive on your commute to work. So for those of you who don't know, I am originally from Southern California. When I moved to South Dakota, I came here to start colts and to run barrel horses for the ranch I came to work for. Now, when I got here, they told me I was going to have to get colts used to handling a rope. I'd never handled a rope in my life. My boss, she handed me the rope and said, "Here, you're going to have to use this." And she showed me how to build a loop, and she showed me how to swing, and she showed me where to hold it, and I kind of just did the best with what I had to work with. And I had a lot of try. I have a lot of natural athletic ability. I would think I played softball for, I don't know, 12 or 14 years of my life, so I kind of knew how to throw overhand. I knew how to look at my target. I knew kind of about release. I had all the lessons a kid could possibly take playing softball, so I figured I could probably apply most of that to throwing a rope. At any rate, what I didn't know was how to prepare a horse for branding, how to prepare a horse for a rope. I was limited by my own imagination, and I didn't really have much of imagination because I didn't grow up in this lifestyle. I didn't know all the things that could happen. I didn't know how a branding went. I didn't know that it was organized chaos. I'd been told some stories, but I didn't know all the things that the kids know that grow up here. So I didn't have that savvy about me. So anyway, the horse that I had this almost a wreck on, if you will, I don't remember his name again. I think my subconscious just kicks that right out of the back of my head. I do remember he was by Hancock Silver Tonka, and he was out of a daughter, a two-eyed red buck. And I'm sure a bunch of you are probably going, that's where your problem is there, and you'll probably find something wrong with his bloodlines, and that's why he did what he did. But I can assure you that everything that I started by Hancock Silver Tonka was the most kindest, gentlest, friendliest colts, and they were just gorgeous. And I had started, I think 3 or 4 siblings to this colt. Prior to starting him, I started 2. In fact, I learned how to rope on one of his full brothers, and he was just a gentle old soul that an old man ended up purchasing from us at the Nile sale, gosh, I think back in 2012. At any rate, when this colt was always just a little bit different. Even when my boss went out to take pictures of him in the pasture, he'd kind of hide behind his mom. And that's just the way he was. He wasn't real friendly. He wasn't real confident. When I first brought him in, even groundwork went a little bit different with him than it did with the other siblings. It took a little bit more desensitizing. It took working him a little bit more. It took me longer to develop a partnership and a friendship with him. So knowing all of that, looking back, it's a little bit easier to reflect on this and go, that's why that happened. There was even a time that after I had him going really well, we had some folks, an older gentleman that had called the ranch and was looking for a started young gelding, and he came out and went to try him, and when he went to mount up on this colt had a complete come apart and just, did the scoot, run off, bucking, run to the end of the arena, blow up kind of deal, stand in the corner scared. And I was horrified. I was just embarrassed and frustrated and discouraged. And we caught the colt back up again, and the gentleman tried to get on him again, and he wouldn't let this man get on him. And to this day, I have a little PTSD from this horse. Anytime a person gets on one of my horses for the first time after I've been the only one to ride them, after I've done the first 30 days or 45 or 60 or whatever, even if I've been riding the horse for 2 years, the first time somebody gets on that horse, and after I've been riding them, I kind of wince, and I kind of have to look away or turn around and look the other direction, even though I know everything's going to be fine. And I've never had another one since that did this to me. That has always stuck in the back of my head. And so I ended up spending the rest of that day with that colt and working him in the round pen and going through all my groundwork all over again, trying to get back on him and regain his trust and go back to square one. And I went back to riding him again. And then branding came around, and I had my personal horse, I had him, and I had a 2-year-old filly that I needed to use at branding and get them all used to dragging calves. At this point, I was getting more comfortable with the rope, but I didn't know how to throw a heel loop. I didn't know how to do any of those special loops, whatever. I knew how to put the rope on the ground and kind of fish and hope a calf stepped into my loop, okay? So that day when we hauled over to where we were branding, it was at my boss's brother's ranch, and it was a couple miles from home. And so I remember I put this colt on the trailer, and I rode the 2-year-old filly instead over, and it was like a 2.5 mile trot, because I knew I wanted to ride that filly down a little bit. She was a little bit hotter headed too. So I rode her down, and I used her to gather, and I did drag a few calves on her and had a pretty good experience. And then when I got on this colt, this 3-year-old gelding, no warm up, no riding him down, no go out and lope circles. I just went into the branding pen, and like I said, I'd had some stories of what brandings were like. This had been my second one. I hadn't been very far off the ranch, and I knew it was organized chaos. My fear was always, once I learned about the ground crew, and you'll have 2 or 3 people working with a calf all sporadically spread out, and depending on how big your branding is, it could be 3 groups of 3, it could be 5 groups or 6 groups, depending on how big it is. And then you got kids, you got older folks that don't move very fast, you've got kids, you've got people that have needles and syringes in their hand because they're vaccinating the calves, you've got hot branding irons. This could be a wreck. And so my biggest fear is I did not ever want to hurt anybody on the ground. I didn't ever want to run over top of somebody on the ground. And I was trying to give this colt a really good experience. And so I go into the pen, and I am so scared and so nervous. And my boss's husband was just going in, catching and coming out, and catching and coming out, and catching and coming out. And of course, I had no branding pen ethic. I just knew that I was supposed to do whatever I was told to do. So whether that was watch the gate or wrestle calves or get on my horse and rope and drag, I was supposed to do whatever they told me to do. And I didn't know how to set calves up for somebody else to rope them. I didn't know that I should wait for somebody else to rope before I threw my rope. I didn't know any of that. So I finally do my fishing, and I get a calf by a foot. I don't get it by both hind feet. And I turn to come out, and this colt blows. And he just grabs his butt, and he goes leaping with me out of the pen. And I was dallied. And the thing that stuck in my head was my boss's husband said to me, if they start bucking with you when you're dragging a calf, he goes, don't undo your dally because it's harder for them to buck when they have that weight on them. That's what went through my head. So I didn't let go of my rope. I didn't undally. I just tried to hold on. But the calf wasn't a very big calf, and there wasn't a whole lot of weight there, and I'm not very heavy, and this was a pretty big 3-year-old gelding. And so he made a couple of jumps out of the pen with me, and I don't know if people scattered or not. I still had a hold of my rope, but I grabbed down and I was able to pull his head, and he turned around and he went right back into the pen, leaping with me, and I don't know if you call it a buck. I'm sure there's going to be some real cowboys that are watching this video that are going to say, oh, that wasn't that bad. That wasn't a buck. You call that a buck. That wasn't a buck. That's fine. I'm not going to argue with you on what a buck is, but there was a point there where I was really out of control. And I'll insert the video right here so you can take a look at it, and you can see. And again, I had some kids videoing me. My bosses, I think it was my boss's niece and nephew that were videoing me. When I handed them my video camera, I said, don't stop videoing whatever you do. In my mind, I kind of thought, just in case. But I was also thinking, well, if we get any good footage, we'd be able to show that, hey, this horse has been to branding, this is how good he was, yada, 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 let's get this horse sold. Because everything I was riding was for sale. So, there's only like 13 or 14 seconds of footage, but it's enough that when I revisited, I went, wow, that looked a little bit worse than I remember. Perhaps that's the reason why I am the way I am. When I look back at those experiences, I just go, wow, I can't believe I survived that. And, this colt, he went on, I can talk about him now because he went on to sell at the Rancher's Quarter Horse Breeders' Sale that year. I believe it was 2013. And honestly, we matched him to a guy there. There was a younger guy that came and talked to us, told him what he was and what he was like, the little bit of blow up that he did have. And this particular cowboy was a hand. He was a hell of a roper. And he was able to take him and do some really good things with him. And he got along just fine with him. And I had put a good enough start on this colt. I had him tracking calves. I had him gathering. I had him tracking out of the box. I had him safe enough for somebody else to go on with. And I had him exposed to enough things that they were able to make do with what they had. And they weren't starting from square one. But the last time I talked to the guy and I saw this gelding, he had turned into this big, beautiful, just gorgeous, gorgeous gray gelding. And the guy was using him to heel off of him to show another horse in the sale. There was a head horse that was for sale, and that guy was heading and this guy was heeling off of this gelding. And, he'd made a good gelding out of him. And so it's nice to have those kind of stories and those kind of successes and experiences. But now, knowing what I know now, and what I could have gone back and done to prepare that gelding for that experience, I mean, gosh, there were so many things that I could have done and what I do now. But to this day, no matter how broke the horse is, when I go into the branding pen for the first time and I rope and drag, I make damn sure I can down-regulate that horse, whoever or whatever it may be, if they have an explosive moment, because they are. They're going to have moments where they have come aparts. And I will tell you this, I am more nervous going in and roping a calf for the first time in a branding pen than I am doing anything else. Whether it be riding something that I know that bucks, putting a first ride on something, riding some of these great big studs that I ride, going in on my barrel horse when she's at her fittest and she's like scary rodeo type horse mentality, and she is just wanting to eat that first barrel, you know, and just inhale it, and she comes running through the alleyway as fast as she can go. There is nothing that scares me more than roping a calf for the first time at branding. So I try to do my best now to prepare colts as good as I can, and not that I ever plan on really going on further with these horses, because I really feel like my purpose is to give them their best start. That way they're user friendly enough to go on with the next person. So from this, I've learned how to make horses more user friendly. I knew I never wanted to feel like that again, and I would never want anybody else to feel like that ever on something that I've started. Some other things that I've learned since going to more brandings now, I don't go and light up the circuit every spring and go to multiple brandings a week or a month. I might get to go to 3 or 4, maybe 5. Not very many. It's just because of where we live and how far we are away. You know, I have learned a lot from a lot of different ranches now, and the branding etiquette, the etiquette of the cowboys involved, the ranchers, the owners. I've had some really, really good experiences since this one. One specifically, I was at Stirrup Ranch Quarter Horses and out in Vale, South Dakota, and I was riding a colt like I usually am. And he was really young, and he was a little bit smaller, and he kind of just needed a little bit of help. He wasn't a go-getter per se. And I had gone in and I had roped one, and I was starting to turn around and drag him out, and he really didn't have any jump or ambition to him, if you will. So I wasn't worried about him getting worried about the rope or the calf dragging behind. He didn't understand how to drag that calf out of the pen. And I will never forget the owner's son coming in on his good broke gelding, and he just buddied his gelding up to mine, and we walked out of the pen. And it was one of the greatest experiences that I've ever had living here in South Dakota. And you know, somebody saw that somebody else needed help, and the person didn't have to ask. They just came and helped. And I maybe if the rest of the world was a little bit more like that, we could all use to learn a little lesson from that experience. So I have been invited back to brandings because my horses behave well. I'm usually one of the only girls in the branding pen. I'm always on a colt, and they know that I'm always on a colt. And I'm always very gracious and very friendly and very thankful to everybody there. I'm always willing to take instruction from anybody. And I also try to take instruction from the guys that look like they really know what they're doing. And you can tell, you know, if you've watched enough, you can see who's a better hand than the other. You know, you can tell by the way they treat their horse. You can tell by the way they handle their rope, how they handle the calf. I've been able to observe these things. You know, one of the things that I do when I go to branding is, after I've kind of gotten my own stuff together and gotten my own horse prepared, I take a look at the other horses around, and I kind of observe who is going to hold it together and who is going to have it come apart. Because inevitably it happens. A lot of people show up at these brandings. They have just pulled their horse out of pasture, and they saddle up and they get on and they go to work. And personally, I try to do my best to prepare every horse that I take, usually with being worked consistently all the way up into the day, and they've been hauled a little bit, they've been hobbled, they've drug lots of stuff around here prior to going. So I can usually identify who's going to have a problem at the branding, and, you know, knock on wood, it's not me. It hasn't been me in a very long time. But I can usually identify who's going to have a problem with their horse long before they have the problem. And I try to just keep my distance from them because you never know what kind of a wreck it might entail. You have to be very, very aware. You have to really live in the moment and focus. There's no time to be on your phone. I try to take pictures when I can, but there's really no time to be on your phone or checking your Instagram or your Facebook. You really have to pay attention and focus and be right there because we're dealing with animals. We're dealing with animals that have their own brain and they're capable of doing anything. And something else that I learned about this experience that I don't want anybody else to ever have to experience is that I can't watch these kind of videos. We've all seen them. We've all seen the videos on Facebook, shared to Messenger, shared to pages, where some dummy is having a train wreck on their horse. And, with older horses, when nobody gets hurt, it doesn't feel as bad. But on the younger stuff that hasn't had a whole lot of experiences, and you can clearly tell that the person is making a really bad choice, those are the ones that I really can't watch. For one, I don't wish that on anybody. And for two, I know what it feels like. For three, the times that it has happened to me and I have gotten hurt, it's not fun recovering. You can recover physically from a lot of things, but you don't recover mentally from them. And it takes a long time to push those memories out of your head, and it takes a certain amount of discipline and visualization every time you go on to the next one, because I do so many and I've had so many of these different incidences. That's why I started this particular video series, is because there's a lot of these and I've got a lot of stories for you guys. And when I go to work with a colt, I don't want to be visually thinking about this video, the clip in this video, or any time anybody else has had an incident like this or similar to this or anything of that nature. I don't want to be thinking about that. Horses know. This colt knew I was scared and I lacked confidence going into this pen, and that didn't help him at all either. So I just wanted to insert that, and please don't flood my inbox with videos of people having wrecks. I don't want to see them. It's okay. I've got a pretty good idea what they look like. I've had to tell my own family, please don't send me those videos. I can't watch them. Not for what I do every day. And I know that I am one day away from blowing through a straw to get my wheelchair around. I know that I can get hurt just as bad on the ground with these animals as I can on their back, but every time I swing a leg over them, I'm that much closer. It's just a game of numbers. It's a matter of time. Superman couldn't even fly away from his accident. So I have to visually keep that mindset every time I go into the pen with these colts and hope for the best experience. Expect the worst, but hope for the absolute best experience. And I think it just takes numbers and repetition and work ethic and doing it over and over and over again to train yourself. Because I'll tell you a story probably in the next upcoming weeks of when I learned that I will never be as fast as they are. So, all that being said, that's my Making Good Choices Monday. Hopefully you guys have learned a little something from my experience and you enjoyed my video, and leave me a comment down below and let me know if you've had a similar experience, or how you would try to handle it better maybe. I don't know. Please share this video and don't forget to click the subscribe button and click like, and any interaction at this point would be awesome because I'm trying to grow this channel and grow my community. And thanks again for watching. I hope you guys make good choices and have a great Monday.